I was, and plus I was young. I was in my mid-20s, so it was,
Yeah.
it was a whole new world that I had fallen into.
Interesting. And how long have you been writing like you do now?
Yeah, well, basically, when I got out of that last, that was 81. The last hospitalization was 82, and I was just deeply traumatized from all of that, the whole experience of being diagnosed and hospitalized and all that.
Yeah.
So I first began teaching in, I think it was 1993. So it was a dozen years of just me just going inward and working on myself and going to therapy and studying my dreams and being an artist, just painting and drawing and all that as a way of trying to integrate what was being shown to me. So so it was 93 that I had the realization, oh wow, I've actually, through the ordeal that I've gone through, I can actually be of benefit for people. And it's not like I'm saying, oh, I'm this enlightened person at all. No, but I'm just a work in progress, continually metabolizing the depth of the trauma that I've been through. But being a creative person, I just realized, oh wow, I actually, based on my own inner experience, I can actually be of benefit to people.
Interesting. And of course, you read. I guess I've read a lot about from Carl Jung. When did you first kind of pick up on his work?
Right. Well, the thing is, it was very interesting because I found his work very intimidating, and then it was a total synchronicity how I came across his work, because that first year after getting out of the last hospital, I was, it was just terrible. I mean, I was losing all of my friends, and I was diagnosed, and I was on disability and on medication, and here I was still having a spiritual awakening, and but it took me a few months to actually kind of get out of the clutches of the psychiatric system.
Yeah.
And I found a book that was talking about Jung, and it mentioned this bibliotherapist at the Jung Foundation in New York City, which is, that's where I was at that point. I was in the suburbs of New York. And I had no idea that there was a Jung Foundation. I went to find it, and I actually found her, and we became really good friends, and I would go to the Jung Foundation every week, and I would tell her exactly what was happening for me, and she would then not only show me the books to read, but show me the chapters in the books to read that had to do with what I was going through. And I became so fluent in Jung that then, after a number of years, the Jung Foundation hired me to run their bookstore. And so I've just been, having found Jung, that really saved me. Because he was somebody, in his autobiography, he talks about the confrontation with his unconscious.
Yeah.
That where all of his colleagues thought he had gone mad, and it really spoke with me. And so finding Jung, and I just study him all the time. I think of him as one of the great geniuses in the who's been in the last number of centuries.
Yeah, yeah. And as I said, your website is called Awaken in the Dream, and is that also title of your first book? Right? Is that right?
Well, wait, is that the title of my first what?
Your first book.
Well, no, this book that you mentioned, The Madness of George Bush, that is my first book.
Oh, okay, I see. Oh, right.
Yeah, I'm almost finished with my second book. But the thing is that I should mention what I do, in my healing practice, like I'm in private practice, but I have these groups called Awakening in the Dream that are just totally amazing. And what it is bringing people together who are all kind of having experiences of the dream-like nature of reality. And, and trying to imagine like maybe a dozen people, and I have them all throughout the week, on different nights. So it's the same people, like on every Tuesday night it's the same people, and people have been in the groups for years and years now, maybe close to 10 years. And we have no agenda, no structure. All we do is become present with each other with the realization that what if we're having a dream right now? What is that showing us? And of course what that means is that if we're having a dream right now, well, then we're each other's dream characters, which means we're each other's like embodied reflections. And that means that whatever is happening moment by moment, we're all dreaming up together. And what happens when you bring a group of people together who have that realization, it actually conjures up a field that's very potentiated for even deepening our awakening. So we've actually we're in the process continually of discovering how we can stabilize and strengthen each other's lucidity. And it's a really amazing sort of thing we've developed that we've been for years wanting to get out to the world, and I'm first now more and more beginning to be, I guess because of my book, beginning to actually, get this out more on the global scale, because it's so unbelievably helpful. It's actually a reflection of what's available to us as a species, that we can actually have the recognition that we're all having a mass shared dream, and we can actually connect with each other and put our lucidity and our collective genius together in a way where we can actually help each other to wake up. And that's an evolutionary impulse, that's being offered to us by the universe.
Very interesting. And do you think that, this is something that more and more people are getting into or becoming aware of at this time, basically?
Oh, totally. No, it's very, very clear. It's not just us, that we're tapping into a deeper archetypal process that's unfolding, into the third dimension. And it's the people who are really, maybe the most sensitive or attuned, who are able to become instruments for this process. But it's what, in my book I talk about this, that it's actually this deeper process of awakening that we're becoming the conduits for. And one way I describe it is that this universe is actually waking itself up. It's dreaming itself awake, and it's doing that through us.
So up to this point, have this been an unconscious experience in that sense? And if we become or if we awake in this, are we at that point able to, I guess, more control the events of what's going on in the world? Is it about controlling our fate, basically?
Yeah, right. But the thing is, just be careful of the word control, because when people say to me, I become lucid in my dream and I control the dream, that's an indication to me that they're not fully lucid, because who's the I that's controlling? It's not quite like that in that sense of manipulating or controlling. But I've coined a term, the sacred power of dreaming. It's that part of us that's co-dreaming this dream, this waking dream, moment by moment into materialization. And what happens when, and the way to understand this is through the imagination. Say if in your night dream, if you become lucid, have the recognition you're dreaming, and then connect with other of your fellow dream characters in that dream who are also becoming lucid, then what you discover is that if you put your lucidity together and contemplate what you've discovered, i.e. that this dream that you're inhabiting is just your own, it's just the externalization of your own consciousness, and that it's manifesting in such a limited and problematic way, because that's the way we've been conditioned to dream it based on our fear and trauma, that when you get a group of people in a dream, and think about the waking dream, who are actually turned on to the dreamlike nature of reality, they can actually get in sync with each other and put what I call their sacred power of dreaming together in a way where they can actually transform the dream into a much more grace-filled dream. And that's evolution. That's what's being revealed to us, because in my book I talk about the word apocalypse. It actually, the etymology of it actually means something hidden is being revealed.
Yeah, right.
And, and so something, in the seeming pathology and the problem of what's happening in our world and the world crisis, encoded in it is this revelation. Something is being shown to us, and everything depends on if we recognize what's being revealed.
One thing that comes to mind is a lot of recent movies, I guess, that kind of, I guess in one sense, talks about this theme that you're describing. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but movies like Waking Life, and to some extent, I guess, even though the outcome of that movie isn't like that, but Vanilla Sky, and also, of course, The Matrix. Do you think that...
Totally, completely.
Yeah.
Those three you mentioned are definitely very much having to do with expressing a similar realization. And so the thing I get to in my book, because, the thing about my book, it's not even really about Bush, and it's not a Bush-bashing book, but it's contemplating Bush as a dream figure that we've all dreamed up to embody our own madness and our own ignorance. But I point out, the final chapter in the book is Art Happening. It's called Art Happening, called Global Awakening, and it's pointing at that as creative, multidimensional artists and dreamers whose canvas is this universe, we can actually create an art happening where we wake ourselves up as a species. You know, so the idea of art is really profoundly important as far as how to deal with our world crisis.
Yeah, very interesting. And let's kind of dive, into your book a little bit. And
sure.
And of course, as you say, the thing that I find fascinating is just, as you say, this is no regular Bush bashing, because to some extent I'm very, sick of that at this point, basically, because
totally.
I mean, it's in one level it's something that has to be done. We have to realize the problem, I guess, in some sense, but after a while it just becomes numbing, and I really appreciate the kind of angle, I guess, that you're taking towards this. So tell us a little bit about the book and kind of what you go into.
Right. And the thing is, first let me introduce the book by way of saying it was based on my own experience of trauma, because I point out that Bush has what I call a psycho-spiritual disease of the soul, that his sickness and his madness, that we all have it. It's in the field, the underlying field of consciousness that connects us all. And how I first had experience of this was with my father, because my father he was in a sense taken over by his unconscious in a similar way, though the way he expressed it was very different than Bush. But he was possessed by his unconscious in a similar way that as was Bush, and he was the source of my being so wounded, and what I began to see in my family system was that this illness that my father was taken over by and embodied was non-local, which means it's a physics term, which means it's not just limited to space and time, to the rules of space and time. And I saw that the field around my father, like with my mother and my other relatives and my friends, and the mental health system, it all seemed to non-locally configure itself in a way to protect his pathology. And so that began to give me this realization, oh wow, there's actually a deeper process, an underlying field that's actually expressing itself, and seemingly individual people are getting sort of drafted into its service to be its instruments. And what happened with my family was that, the illness that my father kind of was incarnating, it totally destroyed my entire family. I mean, I have no family left at all now, and it just consumed them. And I realized at a certain point, oh my God, the exact same sort of bug or psychic germ that infected my family system, sort of got into the petri dish of my family, is exactly now gotten into the human family. It's like a fractal of what played out in my personal experience with President Bush as the portal, because he's the main figure. And so with that as an intro, as soon as I saw that, then that really opened up stuff for me, because I saw, with President Bush, it's like the pathological core of his psyche has co-opted all of the healthy parts into its service. So because of that, he can appear to be this regular, sort of seemingly coherent guy to at least some people, but, so it makes his pathology a little bit hard to recognize if you don't have eyes to see it. And I've given it a name because, it's different than schizophrenia, where all the parts of the psyche are sort of fragmented and, kind of disconnected and disassociated from each other. I actually call it malignant egophrenia. Okay, but for short, it would just be ME disease or me disease, because it's an actual misidentification of who we are. And the inner meaning of the word me disease would be mad emperor disease, in the sense that it's what happens when somebody in a position of power just abuses that power simply because they can, which from the moral point of view is totally indefensible. So that's sort of the starting point for the book. But then I quickly go into, but this illness, it pervades the field, which means that Bush's illness, that Bush's madness is our own madness. It's that he's being dreamed up by all of us to actually embody and incarnate a particular pathology that exists deep inside the collective unconscious of our species, and that